You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name and politics is our game, and we will be doing politics this evening because we have as our guest Alderman, that is Alderman Sandi Jackson. She was elected about a year and a half ago in the 7th Ward of Chicago. She was one of a number of reformers, a number of independents who it was said would give a tough time to Mayor Daley, or at least be an independent bloc. We'll be talking about that. Is there an independent bloc going on? Is there economic development going on in the city and in the 7th Ward? Is safety an issue, and is it getting better? Is education an issue, and is it getting better? Is pay to play an issue, and is it getting better? Is it the city? Is it the city that works? Is it the city council that works? Are all of these more guns, less crime? We've heard that saying before. I wonder what Alderman Sandi Jackson thinks about that. We'll find out. Is she moving up to Congress? There were those rumors. I'm sure we'll find out the answer to that. So don't turn that dial. Whether you live in the 7th Ward or not, we're going to touch on extensively local issues, but they're local to the city of Chicago, but I think they're important wherever you are, whether you're in the city of Chicago, or in the suburbs, or you're in Aurora, across the state of Illinois, where we sometimes hear now on the Illinois Channel, and on YouTube. You can find us sometimes before you can find us as the cable cast. So don't turn that dial. Stay with us. We may get into national issues as well. Alderman Sandi Jackson, we won't go through the whole list of we were talking about before the show. That list is getting very long when we look at her resume, because she's accomplished a great deal in the short time she's been involved in public policy activities. Some would say a short time. You're about 33, but somehow you have like 2 decades of experience. She's actually done TV work. A lot of people don't realize that, for NBC in Toledo, so I got to watch out and try to be as good as Alderman Sandi Jackson. Deputy Director of Training for the Democratic National Committee, 5 presidential campaigns involved with Reverend Jackson. That is directing scheduling operations for Reverend Jackson. In 2004, vice president? Congressional and External Affairs, Export-Import Bank, Director of VIP Relations for the Presidential Inaugural Committee, did a lot of work for Hillary Clinton, Clinton-Gore 96, Campaign Manager, Chief Political Strategist, helping to elect several state reps, Kelly Miller Davis and Senator Meeks, and official observer to the July 1996 Helsinki Accords. Got her undergraduate degree from Bowling Green State in
you can say it, 85.
And a law degree from the University of Illinois in 1992, as did her husband, as I recall, get a law degree.
Yeah,
her husband,
he sure
of course, is Congressman Jesse Jackson. He is the congressman from the 2nd Congressional District. She is the alderman from the 7th Ward. She's been there a year and a half. And so what people want to know, since you came in as a reformer, you came in to keep Mayor Daley honest, hold his feet to the fire. Have you done that? Look, there's all this pay to play. We've heard about all this corruption in the city of Chicago. Is that a part of what you do as a councilwoman, as an alderman? Is it your job in part to keep the mayor honest? And if so, is he a more honest guy now than he was a year and a half ago?
You know, I think it's the job of the entire city council to be good stewards of the public's money. The public has entrusted us to look after the city's coffers, if you will. And so, yes, by some small measure, there has been more oversight, I believe, this year than there has been in the past. I think what we saw this last budget process was a very vigorous, very rigorous debate about the city's budget, especially in terms of our budget analysis. You saw a lot more questioning of our city's departments about the use of city funds, about waste, fraud, and abuse within the city's budgeting process. But, you know, dare I say that there is still more to be done.
What about Robert Zorich? You know Robert Zorich?
I know of him.
And are people doing the same thing now, even as we speak?
I know that office has changed dramatically.
What did Robert Zorich do?
He was the mayor's official patronage person. He was responsible in the mayor's intergovernmental office for hiring and firing, and apparently this person had a scheme, some kind of chart made up, whereby people who fell within a certain ranking within that chart got city jobs. Some people who weren't qualified to hold those city jobs got them anyway because of those connections.
Political connections, political awards,
connections,
violations of the Shackman Decree.
Absolutely,
which you would
violations.
know about because you're a lawyer.
Yes, indeed. And I think anytime there are those kinds of violations, those things have to be prosecuted. And so Mr. Sorge is exactly where he should be.
Was he the fall guy? Didn't Mayor Daley know what his patron's chief was doing?
You know what? That question has not yet been answered. Hopefully it will come to light sometime soon.
How would it come to light? Could the mayor be indicted?
Well, I don't know. I don't know that answer, but I know that investigations are still going on. Okay. I know that there should always be intense oversight. Anytime you have an entity that spends the kind of money that the city of Chicago spends.
What do they spend?
Upwards of $30 billion a year.
What's the budget?
$30 billion.
$30 billion? Does that include the
$30 billion.
Does that include the $6 billion for the Chicago Public Schools?
You know, it does.
Or is that separate?
To a certain degree. Really, the state has fallen short, I have to say, in budgeting on education issues.
We'll get to
absolutely.
That. But the $30 billion includes $6 billion for the Chicago Public Schools.
It includes the $6 billion for the Chicago City Schools.
But that's what they spend. Not all of it comes from the city. Some of it comes from property taxes, right?
That's
so
right.
Forth.
That's right.
But the oversight of the Chicago Public Schools falls on who? Mayor Daley, the superintendent, Alderman Sandi Jackson. To whom does that oversight fall?
You know what? It's a combination. The mayor, to his own credit, has taken on a large burden of oversight for city schools. But generally, that's up to the superintendent and really is up to the state. Now, I know you said, Jeff, we're going to get to the state later, but school funding.
You want to get to it right now?
Let's get to it right now.
You're a former TV reporter. Okay, I'll be the guest. You be the host. You control this show.
Yeah, well, let me just say
There's a coup d'etat going on right here on Public Affairs.
But really, the school funding rests with the state. It's really up to the state to provide for all of our schools, no matter what city the school resides in, whether it's in Skokie, whether it's in Chicago, whether it's in Naperville.
How much?
But it does vary, and it varies.
On average, it's about a third of the total budget for a school.
Well, let me say
here up on the North Shore, it's only about 5 or 10%.
And it's shameful.
It's probably more in the city.
It is more in the city, but there are more schools in the city.
No, but the percentage is more in the city.
Well, now, I wouldn't say that.
There's more people who are low income in the city than in the suburbs.
Yes, there's no question about it. There's no
so it makes
question
sense to redistribute to those folks.
There's
nothing wrong with that.
But it's not happening. It's not happening, and I can tell you just from an examination.
Are you pitching here a tax swap? Are you doing this for Senator Meeks?
Well, I think this.
We couldn't get Reverend Meeks on, Senator Meeks, and he sent you here instead.
Well, now I believe strongly in what Senator Meeks is saying, and I think he's a good man, and he's arguing a good and just cause. But I also believe that the way we go about our funding is wrong on its face, and let me tell you why. When we link the school funding up with property taxes, areas that are poorly represented in terms of its property taxes or severely impoverished end up getting a lot less in terms of funding. So you end up with schools like the schools we have that serve cities like Ford Heights or Harvey or Phoenix, who are...
They get less than what?
They get a lot less. I don't know what the percentage is because I have not studied it, so I have to be
Do they get less
clear.
than other schools in the city of Chicago? Is it uneven? Is it uneven across this? Is it an unequitable distribution within the Chicago?
It's absolutely an unequitable distribution.
Well, isn't that the mayor's role and the city council's role?
It's the mayor's role to a smaller degree, but it is the state's role. We have to.
No, but the state doesn't decide which portion of the state doesn't decide. Excuse me, the state doesn't decide which portion of the city gets the money.
Where it lies, and it lies with our state house. We have to reconfigure the way these schools are funded, Jeff. Right now, the school funding relies heavily on property taxes. We need to move away from that because we'll never have a fair and equitable distribution.
Well, you can redistribute without doing that because, here, let me play devil's advocate.
All right.
Okay. One thing that the property tax does is it allows people locally to control their education. So people on the North Shore, if they want to spend more, they can, and it's controlled by their property tax. And people say in general, local control works better because if people are involved, wherever it is, whether it's the North Shore,
Well,
whether
they
it's
say
the
that.
south side of Chicago.
They say
But if
that.
you want to change things, you can still do it with the property tax. You can redistribute through the state. You can
Jeff,
take from
we've
one area
already
and give
seen
it to
what
the
has
other.
happened. We have we're living it every single day. So for me, we're well beyond the hypothesis stage in this. We are living it. We see that there are schools within our city and within our state. We don't even have to separate them from upstate or downstate. We see it throughout the fact that there is inequitable distribution of resources to these schools. Now, when you look at that and you couple it with the fact that we are now second only to Mississippi in terms of school funding for our schools.
That's not true.
We're in a crisis.
Let me stop you right. I got to stop you right on that.
That
statement is not.
Jeff.
That statement is not true, because
Let me
help you make it into what I call a true statement. I disagree respectfully.
Okay, that's fine.
Because
we
when
can,
you say we're
agree to
second,
disagree.
only to the bottom, what you're talking about second in the contribution from the state government to education, but across the board in terms of total funding in Illinois per kid, it's about 15th in the country. So
Well,
it's on the high end. That's number one.
Well,
and that comes from the
this.
National Education Association,
And I believe
hardly a
in
conservative
NEA.
organization.
I believe in them, and I'm a strong supporter
So 15th,
of NEA.
it's the contribution from the state that's
again-
low, but the
but
contribution
again-
from property taxes is high.
Well,
so
let
it
me say
balances
this.
out.
Let me say this. We can see it in the examples of our schools' infrastructures. I think you have some students here that are from Naperville High, which is a beautiful school. A lot of students would love to go to a high school of such beauty and such caliber. But I believe Oprah illustrated this best when she took students out of Harper High School in Chicago and took them to Naperville. And she took a group of students from Naperville High and took them to Harper. When these students saw the disparities that existed in two public schools in the same state, not far from one another geographically, but within the same state, I don't think that anyone would say what is happening in our school system is fair and equitable.
Well, let me talk about fair.
We're talking about our future,
Can't
Jeff.
filibuster. I got to get a chance to
Well,
get a question
I agree.
in there.
I
Okay,
understand.
so let me back up a little bit. Do you know how much we spend per kid per year in the Chicago public schools? Ballpark.
I don't have
Let
that
me
figure.
tell you, the figure is, it's a $6 billion budget. You take the 420,000 students. It might only be 410,000 now in the Chicago public schools. If you
It's
divide
a large
410,000 into $6 billion, you get more than $14,000 per kid per year. So we may spend more in Naperville. We spend more in North Shore, but not that much more.
Jeff,
Now that's an average figure. So
all I
what I'm
can
trying to
speak
say to you is that $14,000 per kid per year, do you know if you took 25 kids
Jeff.
in a Chicago public school, you would have about $350,000 in that classroom.
Jeff.
Do you think you can educate those 25
Jeff,
kids?
I can tell you this. I can tell you this from experience. We have children within this school system who are sharing books. We have schools
Where's it going?
within Chicago.
Where's that $350,000 going?
whose infrastructures-
Because
I don't know. We have
pensions,
to ask
teacher
our state
pensions?
legislators what is happening
Graft?
with that money. I can tell
Embezzlement?
you.
Where's it
now,
going?
I think there's a lot of that going on. I do, and I don't think
Okay.
that there are enough
well, I have an
reformers
idea.
to deal with
Let
that.
me challenge you with an idea.
Okay.
Because your idea is to have a tax swap, raise the income tax, lower property taxes,
you
a
know,
net
that-
infusion of $6 to $7 billion
makes a lot of sense
in
to
revenue
me.
to the state. That's your idea.
It's an idea that has been proposed by others that I
Reverend
agree
Meeks,
with.
Ralph
Absolutely.
Martieri, a bunch of folks.
Absolutely.
Perhaps even Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr.
Perhaps even the congressman.
But here's another idea, because it may take a while to get people to sign on. How about introducing a little choice, a little competition into the public schools? How about saying, if I'm right, that we spend $14,000 per kid per year, take on average, that's what we spend, take that $14,000, put it in our backpack. You know about this backpack?
No, I don't know about your backpack.
Well-
There are many others, but I don't know about yours.
Let's see if we have,
Okay.
I think do we have that $14,000 here? I don't know if we have it here. I have to
Okay.
dig real deep in the pocket. Usually I have my prop set up better.
Okay.
Here's 14,000. We're going to put it in the backpack here. And right like that. That's the hypothetical $14,000 right here per kid per year. Give the parents of each of the kids in the Chicago public schools one of these backpacks. In fact, you're in a position to help do that. I realize it's partly controlled by the state, but also by the city. You could go down to Springfield and say, I want today 410,000 backpacks. I will help you, work with you to take the state money, the city money, the federal money, the county money, property taxes, put it in a backpack. We'll give each parent the backpack. They strap it on the kid, and if the parents are happy with the public schools, and many are, the backpack stays there, the kid stays in the public schools, the backpack stays there, the cash there. But if the parents want to choice differently, out goes the kid, out goes the backpack, out goes the cash, and there's competition for that private school which may not be doing well. How about that? Would you sign on to school voucher, school choice? You want to take this backpack?
There is room
you want to take this
for
backpack?
all of these options.
You're going to take Come on, it won't hurt. It won't
You're
bite.
a tough customer.
Take the backpack. Take the backpack.
I will take the backpack, and I will take
offer
it with these caveats.
Offer it to your constituents, your 60,000 constituents in your ward.
I don't have a problem with options. What I'm concerned, I don't.
School voucher, school choice. You sign on to that today?
I don't have a problem with it, but what I'm concerned about are the children who are left behind in those schools. Once the children who are high performing, who have parents who are engaged, who are fully engaged. We've got a class of students, Jeff, unfortunately, whose parents are not as engaged as others.
You could help
so
them.
when you separate those children
you and other
those
leaders in the community, you're the alderman in the community.
If I can finish, when you separate those children out and you say, okay, for you parents who are highly motivated to pick your children up and take them out of here, here you go, here's a voucher, here's a vehicle to get them from here to there, and then you have the children who, through no fault of their own, may be in a dysfunctional situation and they are left there. Now you've taken away funding, you've taken away parents who may be involved in the LSC systems, who have great oversight, who are engaged, who will help pull not just their children up, but other children as well.
Everybody who wants to leave could, because they're community people. Barack Obama started out as a community organizer.
Yes,
If Barack Obama were there on July 7th, 2008, there being on the South Side, there being in South Shore, there being in Hyde Park, a bunch of areas in Chicago where kids admittedly have difficult family circumstances, don't have parents, but there are people like Barack, there are people like your husband, Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., who's a leader, there are people like you, Alderman Sandi Jackson, and a bunch of other folks who are motivated, who are intelligent, and who could say to these kids, if your parent isn't going to counsel you, we will, and we'll advise you, or the legal guardian if it's only, or maybe there are people who are watching over these kids, and if they won't make the right decision, you and I and others will help them. And that's all. So the only people would stay. There are a lot of people who stay who like the public schools.
There's no question about it.
They're
The only thing I would say there to end this on education, we do, because there's a lot of good things to talk about in addition to this. But the only thing I would say about this whole education component is that it is a very complicated, very difficult issue. It is not nearly as stark. There's no bright line on either side in terms of which way to go with respect to education.
You would consider school voucher, school choice.
I would consider it.
And you would consider charter schools. You would consider lifting the cap. You would talk to Senator Meeks and make sure that cap is high so there could be more charter schools in his ward than yours, right?
I think you've got to put all options on the table. Every option.
Let's go back to economic development. That's what's happening. Your district, what's your district, your ward? It starts on the 61st Street?
It starts on 71st and Yates, and goes all the way down to 103rd, east to the lake. East to the lake. So we encompass, west is Yates, all the way over, takes in some parts of Paxton until you get to 95th. At 95th and Stony Island Avenue.
So includes South Shore?
It's got South Shore, South Chicago, South Calumet, South Deering, which many people know as Jeffrey Manor. So a great bedrock community, a lot of bungalows, smaller homes, a lot of senior citizens who have resided there for 35 years plus.
Years past, has there been economic development, and where is
there
it been?
Has been very little.
Year and a half that you've been there.
Very little economic development.
People are coming to you and say, why not?
But we are poised. Now, under new leadership, we are poised to bring on economic development.
Where's that development going to be?
I'm glad you asked me that question, Jeff, because I'm dying to tell you.
I'm the straight man here.
You are the straight man, and I am going to give you the straight answer, or the straight talk.
Straight talk and express?
Senator
You're back in Senator John McCain?
I think he's a good man. He's a great man. He's a good man for the times, just not for president right now.
You don't think he's ready?
I think he's a good man. I think he has a great role to play in the U.S. Senate.
Slight distraction. Barack Obama, is he ready to be president?
Barack is ready from day one.
How well do you know Barack?
I know him very well. His wife, Michelle, went to high school with my sister-in-law, Sandi Jackson. Our families have known one another ever since he married Michelle and came to Chicago as
Your families
an
are personal
organizer.
friends?
Personal friends.
Congressman Jesse Jackson,
Is a
Alderman
national
Sandi Jackson,
co-chair.
Michelle
Yes.
Obama,
Absolutely.
presidential candidate Barack Obama.
Absolutely.
You folks hang together, sir.
Well, we don't hang. We all have very, very busy lives.
But when you're
I'm sure you can imagine.
when you're gonna hang out, you hang together.
Well, absolutely, and I can tell you this: we're looking forward to a play date in the White House. So,
all right. So
with
you're
our
confident
children.
Barack Obama can do well as a president?
Absolutely confident. I'm certain
He's experienced
he
enough.
will pull it out. I think he brings with him a breadth of experience. I think he has a world view that many other office holders do not have, a unique worldview in the sense that he has lived abroad, can help our country mend those fences, mend relations that have been severed over the past 8 years. He will go a long way, and already has, just through this historic
Judgment.
run.
He's got good judgment?
He's got great judgment.
But how do you explain Reverend Wright, Tony Rezko,
You
the
know,
bitterness comment? You know that stuff. We won't have to go through it all. But
I do know that
was
stuff.
it bad
and
judgment to stay in that church, Trinity Church,
let me just
that
say
long
this.
with Reverend Wright?
No, I don't believe so, because I don't believe you can judge a person by the things that come out of another person's mouth. I know Reverend Jeremiah Wright, and I know Father Pfleger, and I know them both to be good men. But I also know that ministers, when they preach, they sometimes get caught up in the moment. I've been to Reverend Jeremiah's church, to Trinity, and I know that the churchgoers there are good people. I never, not once, heard a negative comment come out of
But
Reverend
you heard about that
Wright's
stuff,
mouth.
goddamn America, KKK,
I did hear that.
all that
saw
stuff?
I saw it on YouTube, and I was
Barack
surprised as
said,
well.
Barack said Reverend Wright has not recognized the goodness of America, has not recognized the change. He disassociated himself from that church.
Yeah, he did do that. He and his family did do that.
Took him 20 years, but he
had
did it.
Every right to do it.
Okay.
But let me say this: I am a churchgoer, but I don't go to church every Sunday. Forgive me, I should.
You've just
I
admitted
know
this across the city of Chicago.
Well, I did.
Talk about confessions.
And this was
a public confession.
And I told my pastor when he put it on TV and allowed me the opportunity to TiVo it, that kind of hurt, because I can TiVo it and watch it at any time. But I know there are a lot of people like me who miss church on occasion, and so you miss every sermon. And while I go about my busy life, I may not hear about what the last sermon was about. And I think that may have been the case with Barack, especially a senator. He may not have been in church every Sunday. He may not have been there as a state senator.
And then as a U.S. senator.
And then as a U.S. senator. He may not have been there. He may not have gone to
But tell me
Bible
this, and then we'll get
study.
back to the other stuff as we do. But this Tony Rezko thing, he knew him pretty well. I mean, he has said during the U.S. Senate campaign, there were times they were speaking almost daily.
Yeah.
$250,000 came his way via Tony Rezko.
Yes.
You say he got help, assistance, involved in the purchase of a house when he was U.S. Senator, and he had to have known Tony Rezko was under investigation. He himself called it a boneheaded move. Again,
he did.
bad judgment by Barack Obama?
He did admit it was a boneheaded move. But then again, I explain it this way. How many of us have a myriad of friends? We have friends from all walks of life, from high school, college, graduate school, our professional associations. And in our public presentations, people put their best face forward.
Everybody knew Tony Rezko was a shaker and mover.
We knew he was a shaker and a mover. I knew him.
But
I didn't
we knew
know.
he might have been gone close to the margin.
We didn't know what he
indicted
did.
and convicted. So
once
right now,
the indictment
indicted
came
and
down, then people say, okay, there's something
Before
here to be
then,
questioned.
you give him the benefit of the doubt.
I do. I give him the benefit of the doubt. It's impossible.
Can I get back to local issues? But while we're on national issues, there's been rumors that Congressman Bobby Rush is sick and he may have to resign. We wish him well. We hope he doesn't have to.
We do wish him well.
But if he does have to resign, the rumors were that you might get appointed by the committeeman. You would then be the appointed congresswoman for the 1st Congressional District. What do you think?
Well,
would you take that if offered?
I have to say this first and foremost, because I don't want to add more to the rumor mill. Bobby Rush is a dear friend. His wife, Carolyn, is a dear friend of mine. And I know that Bobby is going through a difficult time with this cancer treatment that he's undergoing. And so Bobby has said to me, he has said to others, that he intends to serve his term out. He has no intention.
But hypothetically, if he didn't,
hypothetically,
if he didn't, would you be there too?
I would not even speak to that issue, because I believe that Bobby is serving honorably.
Okay.
He is well respected in his role. We want to honor him in that. And so I have said that I respect Bobby. I am not seeking that office at this point, and so I'm not entertaining questions about it.
Could you one day think of becoming mayor of the city of Chicago?
I wouldn't rule it out. I would say all
Could your
options
husband
are
think of
on the
becoming
table.
mayor of the city of Chicago?
I'm sure he's not ruling it out either. We should all keep our options
You're
open.
not going to run against each other?
You may become the host of Meet the Press.
I don't think
Who
so.
knows? That seat is now open. You are so good
Send
at
in
what
my
you
name,
do.
would you? Okay. All right.
I will do it. I will
But
do it.
seriously, one other rumor that's come
Yes.
up is that, and you may know about it, maybe not, we'll have to ask the congressman, that if Barack Obama is elected president of the United States, he's close with Congressman Jesse Jackson.
Yes.
He may want him in his cabinet. Do you think Congressman Jackson would take that if offered?
I would
Department of
strongly
Education, Health and Human
encourage
Services.
him to look at anything that's offered. It would be a great honor to serve in the administration of a president,
He would think about
Barack Obama. I would encourage him to.
We're going to continue to speak as the credits roll. We should have this guest, Alderman Sandi Jackson, back again because we hardly touched on the issues. I hope so much you'll come back.
I must come back, Jeff. This was great fun.
Okay, but let's get right back to economic development because that's crucial. What do you do to cause economic development in the 7th Ward of Chicago?
You know, I'm so sorry we didn't have more time to talk about it. We've got
Do it in a minute, real quick.
650 acres of lakefront property that's due to be developed. 650 acres, a new high-end mall, 17,000 housing units coming online, a hospital facility, university, research facility, and a host of other things.
Lower taxes?
Lower taxes for sure. You know I'm not for higher taxes.
But that thing about the living wage and big boxes, did that go away? Because remember, that was going to require big box companies to pay $13
Right.
the equivalent per hour.
I don't know
the mayor
that it's
vetoed it,
gone
went
away.
but right now it doesn't exist. Would you like to
does
see?
not
Would you like to
exist.
see that ordinance, a living wage requirement for big box companies?
You know, I'm absolutely for a living wage, but what I'm more encouraged about is more economic development.
So if you can get
on
these
the south
companies in
side,
there and they pay jobs,
bring
and
them
they're
in.
increasing,
I'm all
worry
for
about
it.
wages later on.
Get them here. We need the jobs. We are in an economic
Safety.
downturn.
What do you do to make the 7th Ward, in other words,
Create
safer?
more jobs. People want to work. They need money to sustain
Should
their
they be able
families.
to own a gun in their home to protect themselves?
I'm against more gun.
Even in their home to own a handgun?
I'm
Own a
against
handgun?
more gun ownership. I don't think having more guns is going to make us safer as a community. I think we've got to stem the tide of guns. We're
But in their
seeing
home,
more,
in their home, should they be
even in
a
their
handgun
home.
in their home?
I don't.
Bad guy comes in, who wonders, does somebody have a
I'm
gun?
against more guns. We're seeing more
Female
accidental
walking down the
shootings.
street, she may be smaller than
We're
the person.
seeing more
Let her
accidental shootings
conceal
every
carry.
day.
Have her hold a gun in her
I'm
purse.
not for it. I lived and worked in Texas for a while where concealed guns are legal, and I'm not
Was the
for
Supreme
it.
Court wrong on the D.C.
Absolutely,
decision?
absolutely wrong on that.
And in Chicago, will the ban on handguns be overturned?
I'm with the mayor in saying
Ban
that
on
we need
handguns
to
and
do
possessions in Chicago.
everything we can to keep handguns out
What
of
do you do?
Chicago.
Is he going to raise taxes on people who own guns? Is that what he's going to do?
That's not the way. That is not the way. We've got to do more to get people to
they've had-
voluntarily give up these guns.
But they're not. The bad
We're
guys
seeing
keep getting
more
guns.
Bad guys are absolutely
Shootings outside the taste of
they
Chicago,
are
you saw
getting-
that.
And we've
Handgun,
got to get these
gun
guns
control didn't do
out of
anything
the
for
city.
that. Is
They've
it
got
time,
to come out.
Time for a new approach?
It
Time for
is
change.
ti-
You know that slogan,
absolutely.
change?
I like that. It's time for a
But
change.
Barack Obama's not sure. He doesn't think that ban on handguns will be suitable.
Well, he's not sure, and I give him.